So I made some big life changes when I was 24. And the two things that really saved me and also started to create like identities around were 12-step programs and being a Kundalini yoga teacher. And they're both like really beautiful, healthy things that helped me so much. I spent a decade being those things. And so I am still those things, but it's been a really interesting experience to like let those, they're identities that saved me and put me on a certain path. And so now I'm sort of like, oh, okay, is there more? What's underneath there? Do I need those identities anymore? I don't know. Maybe I don't. Maybe I'll still be okay without them.
Hey, Yogi Triathlete community, welcome back to the podcast. I am so psyched to be here with BJ and our friend Kyla from Newport, Rhode Island. It's just so crazy. We're in Ojai, California right now, and Kyla is on an epic adventure, which is why we want her on this podcast. One of the reasons. She's got a great story that we want to share. She's a Kundalini teacher. I've been wanting to have a Kundalini teacher on the pod for a while, and I had you in mind, like even when we were living in Newport and getting ready to move into our car, but we only had a certain amount of time. And so anyway, as the universe works its beautiful magic, we're now here in this amazing town in this super cool retro like hotel thing. And and here we are. So we're psyched. Kyla, so happy to have you here with us.
Thanks for having me.
So before we dive in, I just wanted to say one thing, a story that I was going to tell you before we put the mics on, but then I said, let's just wait for the podcast. So in 2016, when BJ and I knew that we were going to hit the road, we spent many months not telling anybody, really making sure that we were solid, had the energy really solid around this, because we knew there were going to be naysayers. And they were. I mean, people told us everything from you're going to be murdered on this trip to what are you doing? You guys are crazy. California's
pay for it.
Oh my
gosh. California's the worst and all this stuff. And it was right before, like, I think it was days before we were leaving, and I walked into your Kundalini, your iconic Tuesday night class.
I remember
in
you
Newport,
being
Rhode
there.
Island, and you just locked eyes with me and you said, I heard you're doing something amazing. And it was like, I needed to hear that so bad.
I just got chills.
You
totally
had no
said that.
idea, because it was one of those nights where I was like, I have to go to Kyla's class and just breathe and stir some stuff up, because everybody was pouring their fear. Not everyone, a lot of people were pouring fear all over us. And to just walk in and have you welcome me in like that and just confirm that what we were doing was actually amazing. And now here we are, and you're doing a very amazing thing.
I said it was amazing, but I also thought it was a little crazy.
Which is
in the best way.
Yeah.
So it's funny. It's ironic that, 3 years later?
Yeah.
3 years later, I'm doing a similar thing.
Yeah.
So
I know. So tell us about
crazy.
it, because you were settled in. Like, you had a very successful business. You had the boyfriend. You had the house. Like, you had a following. So tell us about, like, how did you get here in Ojai in our hotel room?
My first response is, I have no idea. But yes, similar experience to what you guys felt was that, I had all the things. I had reached all these goals and dreams I had. I had opened a yoga studio and a store. I was about to buy a condo. I was in a relationship. I had a really beautiful yoga following and Tuesday night class. And I felt really like claustrophobic. I felt like it's like reading a book that's way too close to your face kind of thing. I had no space to breathe.
So I know how that feels.
Suffocating.
It felt suffocating. It felt like I needed to, I didn't know what it was. I just felt like I was in like some kind of cage or something. So I remember laying in bed, and just this like thought came in that I needed a break from teaching the Tuesday night class, which is like, to yoga teachers that teach like 15 classes a week, it doesn't seem like a big deal, but this class was a class.
This class was a big deal.
It was a thing.
It was a thing.
So I needed to take a break. And so I took a month off from teaching that. And that sort of, in a way, kind of created some space. Like the book in front of my face was kind of like it just gave a little distance so I could read the story a little bit more.
It was the first step.
It was the first step.
Yeah.
Once I created that space and had like a little breathing room, I was like, oh, this relationship is wonderful, but it's not right. So I had to let go of the relationship. It just wasn't right. And so that went. That was the next step. That created more space. And then I was like, oh, I'm reading the story more now. Okay. Then it became really clear, and this is over the course of like a couple months maybe, then it became clear that the store and the yoga studio, which were doing just fine, it needed to go. It was just time. It was time to close. I don't know. I just got really clear on that. And so let go of the teaching. I let go of the man. I let go of the brick and mortar. And I think that created enough space for creativity to flow. I had more space for intuition and for creativity and for guidance. And also it got clear that I needed to be more of service. Like I wanted more fulfillment. And I wanted I have an online clothing company. I wanted that to go somewhere more significant in like the service world. I still don't really know how that looks. I'm trying to figure it out. That's what I'm doing. I'm figuring it out. So I'm like, I'm going to start a nonprofit and live 1 month in 12 cities and teach any underserved group that needs me. Jails, rehabs, shelters, eating disorder treatment facilities, anywhere and everywhere. So that was the idea that came. And prior to, taking the steps to make all that happen, I tried to change the idea a zillion times and make it smaller and less scary. But it wouldn't go away. None of you guys can relate. But I'm like, maybe I'll just do 6 months, but it just didn't feel right. Like I wasn't getting the like.
Well, that's the bargaining, right? The bargaining with yourself to stay safe, to still stay safe.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm
And
like,
to be relentless.
I just bought this beautiful new couch. How am I supposed to put that in storage? I was like, maybe I'll just fly to each city for 1 week and do 1 week a month and just stay in Newport. But also logistically, I couldn't, that would cost me so much money with the flights and, still trying to run everything at home. And so
it's that human hardwiring to stay safe because let's face it, you blew your life up.
Totally.
You had a business, you had the boyfriend, you were about to buy a condo, you had the following, why wouldn't you stay there?
I had everything I wanted.
That was
everything.
safe and comfortable. Why? That makes no sense to the intellect, right? And certainly not to our hardwiring to stay safe and comfortable. And I love how I think what you did is such an important message to people is that you just took the first step.
Yes.
And you were like, okay, I'm just going to surrender this class. And maybe that's all I need. But it wasn't.
I also want to get more clear, for anyone that listens, what that feeling manifested itself as. So I was tired all the time. I had this constant background anxiety. It was background noise anxiety. I don't know if that makes sense. But I carried around it with me all the time. I felt depressed a lot. I was crying and stuff. It was just, I didn't feel well. And it sort of slowly came into my life. So it was a bit unnoticeable. So all of a sudden I'm claustrophobic and that state of being starts to feel normal and almost unnoticeable, and I'm so busy, so life's moving so fast and I'm doing all the things, and so
did you now, if you guys in this community know Kyla, which I know a lot of people who we know will be listening to this, that you're really transparent, you share a lot, you're very honest, you're very generous, but did you have that I guess they call it like imposter syndrome. Here I am trying to slough it off. I fucking have had this so many times, it's not even funny. Did you just see what I just tried to do? Like, oh, I think they call it imposter syndrome. I have lived under that, like the grips of that. Like, who do you think you are?
Oh, yeah.
So here you are, you got this big following, but you're walking around with this
my
low
gosh,
level
you have no
anxiety.
Oh, yeah, totally. And then like, showing up to teach yoga, and then people are just showering you with like, you're so amazing, you're such a great teacher. You just called it an iconic yoga class. I'm like, thanks for the pressure, my goodness. Yeah, and then it's like I'm eating like ice cream at night, like feeling like a loser.
It sucks. But it's so true, and it's a really hard thing to navigate.
Yeah.
Because it's it's not it's not allowing yourself to live your authentic self, like really live that truth. And it's almost, and I think I want to say it probably happens to a lot of people in this kind of healing modality of, either being a yoga teacher or massage therapist or whatever it is, psychotherapist, whatever it is that you are, like that you're living these two different lives sometimes.
Yes.
During this time, you have a meditation practice?
Yes.
So do you feel like that was important in gaining this clarity in this space and the directives that you took action on?
Yes, totally. Even just like a few minutes every day can be life changing. And since I've been on the road, like I have like dumbed down my Kundalini practice actually. Like it's gotten super simple. Like super simple. I don't know if everyone listening will know what Kundalini is, but it can be pretty technical and wacky, and like there's lots going on, and it is a beautiful, life-changing practice. I think I just made so many big changes, and I'm traveling a lot, that like simple breathing, mindfulness meditation is really working for me right now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And, when we look at the practices of mindfulness and meditation, it's the most profound is always
the simplest.
It's the simplicity. Mm-hmm. It's found in the simplicity.
I remember what I was going to say. It's very hard to walk away from something that from the outside is working and that you're getting lots of positive reinforcement for. So it felt like inside me, like it felt like it was time to walk away from the store and teaching that Tuesday night class. But I'm making lots of money, people love the class, and I'm getting like on the daily, like people like affirming like this is working, you are great at it, so it's hard to, that's one of the most challenging parts.
It's that conflict. So the conflict. So the heart is pulling one way, and the external thoughts and backings of all the crowd is conflicting with what you truly feel.
Totally.
And so it's really hard to step back and say, oh, but I really need to do this, when everything, and I'm sure you had on this adventure that you're on, people that were questioning your
100%
resolve to get out there and dump all this stuff.
Totally. And to tie that back in with the like simple breathing meditation, I think part of this tour is sort of shedding the external identities that I created in Newport, and just seeing what's there. And so being a Kundalini teacher was a big one for me, and I love the practice, but it's kind of like also part of my identity. So it's been a really interesting experience to live in a new city where nobody knows me as that. Even grocery shopping, I'm like, I'm not going to run into one person here that knows who I am.
Yeah, like Haymarket.
Yeah.
Nobody's going to know. And so, and like, I don't have any like big realizations. I mean, I'm 5 months in now. I've had little ones, but that has been a profound experience, just to be like, oh, okay, like, who am I now that I don't have these external... Do I even like yoga? I mean, I do, but
it's good to
but
ask.
It's good to ask these questions.
Put yourself in there and
It
actually
really
ask it. It's a really
is.
deep question.
It really is.
Yeah.
And I got, we were going to talk a little bit about my past with addiction, and I got sober when I was 24. partied really hard, struggled with eating disorders, pretty much like all the addictions in the book. So I made some big life changes when I was 24. And the two things that really saved me and also started to create like identities around were 12-step programs and being a Kundalini yoga teacher. And they're both like really beautiful, healthy things that helped me so much. I spent a decade being those things. And so I am still those things, but it's been a really interesting experience to like let those, they're identities that saved me and put me on a certain path. And so now I'm sort of like, oh, okay, is there more? What's underneath there? Do I need those identities anymore? I don't know. Maybe I don't. Maybe I'll still be okay without them. I probably will be okay without them.
Yeah, you look okay right now. So
Does all that make sense?
Yeah, they serve the purpose.
I think it's really important, like we have to have roles in this physical existence, this world, this earth that we live on. We have to be the interviewers and you to be the interviewee for this to even work.
Right.
But how attached are we to those roles? And that's really what you're uncovering, is that are you okay without that Tuesday night class?
Right.
Are you okay? Can you be joyful and can you be fulfilled and can you be free?
Yes.
And of course you can, right? So we're all these actors and the world is our stage and
totally.
And it's important to play our roles and question those roles like you're doing. Is this where I'm supposed to be right now? Yeah. Always questioning those roles, regardless of what the reasoning faculty of the mind says. Like on paper, everything looks great here, Kyla. Stay with it.
Right.
But you're walking around with this background noise of anxiety and having,
which I think a lot of people are. I think a lot of people are in that.
And this is so important.
Notice,
you got to keep growing. If you don't, you'll get into that. I mean,
Well, I think a lot of people are living with that background noise of anxiety, and that this is. I mean, I did it.
It's the norm.
It becomes the norm. Yeah.
I think you probably did, BJ, to a degree. And you're peeling off those layers. And getting curious about that, and especially if we're in conflict. Especially when we're in conflict, when that heart and the mind are in conflict, because the truth sits right in the middle of that. Right in the throat. And I want to get back, I really want to talk about kind of the experiences that you've had on the road, but because you brought up, your transformation at such a young age in your 20s, what was that rock bottom that pulled you out?
Every time I've made a major change in my life, it's not because I'm super spiritual and just thought it would be a great growth moment. I've either gotten cornered or caught. Thank God. So I know there's something working in my life. So I had years of, actually not even that many years, thank God. I was terrible. I just always got caught. I always got in trouble. Some people are very functional with their drinking and drug use. I was not.
You were a hot mess.
I was a mess. So luckily, put it to bed pretty quickly.
Worked in your favor.
Yes, but my last night drinking, I had tons of records, 2 DUIs. I had dropped out of grad school. I got evicted from a couple apartments in San Diego. I was just crazy. So many things, so many stories. Anyway, I had moved back home to Rhode Island and living in my parents' house. I was working at some bar and drove home drunk like I always did. And I was also struggling with bulimia at the same time. And so, drove home. My parents were asleep. I was going to make pasta, late night.
Yeah.
Late night pasta.
Late night pasta. I put the pasta in the pan, did not put any water in it, and then passed out on the kitchen floor. And I woke up to all this smoke, and I remember my father screaming. I was kind of in and out of a blackout, so I hardly remember, but I remember him screaming at me. There's smoke everywhere. I almost burned down the house, which was not unlike any other night, but for some reason this was a little different. So I woke up the next morning in the car in the driveway. So like apparently I probably tried to like dramatically run away, but my parents had taken my keys. So I get out of the car and I walk back inside, and my parents are sitting at the kitchen table with a note that I wrote while I was drunk that I did not remember writing, and it said, "I'm an alcoholic and I'm bulimic and I need help."
Whoa.
And I just couldn't think of a lie quick enough to get out of it like I normally would have. And so I think I may have like, smoothed over the bulimia. I was like not ready to address that yet. It was like, I'm exercise bulimic. I don't actually throw up. That was just too shameful. Like, but I'm like, maybe I might have a drinking problem. I'm not sure. And so my father was like, if you're going to stay in this house, you need to do 90 meetings in 90 days, which is an AA thing. That's what they do. So, and that's what I did. I had no intention of staying sober this long.
10 years later.
10 years later, yeah. So
You were
I actually was so mortified because, backing up, I had gone from being this like neurotic perfectionist, straight A, very spun up tight. I went to Pepperdine. I ran cross country, straight A's. I was on a pre-med track. And then I pulled a Britney Spears and went crazy. And then, no offense, Britney.
She does listen.
And no offense to anyone who lives in New England, too. Like,
I know! Oh my God. So many people hate me already. No. Yes.
Because Brittany's a big listener, by the way.
Yeah.
She is. She's into meditation now, I think.
So, so I was just so mortified that I was like, I'm just sentencing myself to a lifetime of AA. Like, it was my punishment to myself.
Right, because you must be punished.
I must be punished.
Right.
And what I found was something totally different there. Really
do you remember that first meeting? Like, you're saying you had no intention of staying sober this long.
Yeah, it was weird. It was totally not a cool meeting at all. I went with my dad. I was super hungover. There were a bunch of old people there. That's why they have you do 90 meetings in 90 days, so that you try out a lot of them. Like and then eventually I found a meeting on Tuesday night, and actually, like, I strategically planned my Tuesday night Kundalini class down the road later to be right before that meeting. So it's a young people's meeting, still runs in Newport. It's at 8:00. It's at Siemens Church Institute.
Oh, yeah.
And that's where I made all my friends. So when I started teaching yoga, which was, a year or two into being sober, I was like, I'm going to do this class from 6 to 7:15. Right up the street from that meeting, and maybe, some sober young people will come and meditate with me. And that's totally what happened. It was packed from the very first day. And I would say half the class is sober young people.
That's so cool.
Yeah,
so
that's how it started. Yeah.
It's such a beautiful story about because that was, this part of you that just wanted to get out of underneath just the addiction, and wow, really profound.
Totally. Yeah,
really
it
profound.
was.
Because the DUIs weren't helping. Like, they weren't getting you sober.
No.
And getting evicted wasn't getting you sober. So your higher self had to step in.
Right. It, like, I still know, and then, tackled the eating disorder later in a similar way. There was like a similar kind of cornering. Mm-hmm. I thought, I swear, even to this day, that nobody was home when I was doing my binge purge situation. I swear no one was home, but everybody was home, and I got caught. I had been careful about it for, 8 years, and it was just that one day, so it was a similar thing.
You were still carrying that little piece, that little piece, and with that growing probably a lot of that low vibe of shame and guilt, and I must be punished.
Totally.
Oh,
yeah. What was I going to say? Oh, so when did the yoga come in? So you were a yoga teacher a year after you became sober.
Yeah. So
how does that hit come?
So that came because I was doing all the things. I was doing 12-step, and I was going to therapy, and my mother
Yes.
who is an avid yogi, and she was
Yes.
like, you don't need to do those things, you just need to go to yoga. And I was kind of like, fuck yoga. Like, no, thank you. So I was like too afraid to go to yoga. I'm like, I don't know all the moves. Like, I don't get it.
Gotta do
Which
it
is
right.
everyone's
Everyone,
hesitation,
yes,
right?
I'm
I'm
like,
not flexible and I can't.
I don't know the moves. So she got me. She was adamant about that it would help me, and so she got me private lessons with Liz Dufresne, who's a
Yeah, I know Liz.
Yep, she's a Rhode Island-based yoga teacher, like came full circle because her and I taught in a teacher training together a couple years ago. So kind of a
That's so
cool thing. Like,
cool.
she was the one that got me in. So I had spent so many years not listening to my body at all. Like, you know, if it said I'm hungry, I'm like, no, you're not. So I didn't even know where my left leg was. I was so disconnected from my body. Like, I remember that first private lesson with Liz. Like, it was ridiculous. Like, I didn't know where any of my body parts were to move them.
So just totally disconnected.
Okay, so
Totally.
So just to backtrack too, because we have a lot of athletes that listen as well. So
Yes.
was this in cross country as well when you were in college, or not as
Like
being able to disconnect from the body? You see,
I see where you're going. Yeah.
like athletes would want to just disconnect from the pain or sensation that they're feeling,
Right.
and push through. Or was that
Right.
in your awareness at that point?
That was
that you
so
remember?
not in my awareness at
Okay.
all. But I was, my eating disorder prime was while I was an athlete at Pepperdine, running cross country. And that was very much not listening to your body at all and just pushing through and being, totally.
Hyper focused on.
Yeah. I mean, eating disorder psychology is deep, but it was very much all about control and restriction and regiment. I would say, I wasn't, there was no gut feelings. And, I love my body so much. I can't believe it made it through all that. It's amazing.
Isn't it amazing?
It's an amazing.
It's
will
amazing.
Show up.
I had osteoporosis at Pepperdine while I was there. At 18, I had osteoporosis in my spine and both hips because I was a menoriac. I was running way too many miles. I was not listening to my body. Running fast times.
So you got the numbers. You see the numbers.
So a
Yeah.
side note. So I'm running a half marathon in every city, and I haven't run like this in years. It's been a long time, and my relationship with running has totally changed. So I had stopped for a long time, like during that, doing my yoga training and getting sober. I'd run like here and there, but I wouldn't call myself a runner during those years. So I have this new found relationship and love for running that's totally different than it was. And I have this like kind of quiet goal of running my college half marathon time by the end of the year, because for me it would be so validating that like you can still run the times and train in this healthy, balanced way.
Yeah, that goal's not quiet anymore, by the way.
I'm like pretty far away from it. Like I'm old now.
What is it? Let's,
Yeah, I mean, it's
let's
out
throw it out there.
now.
What do we got? What are we looking at?
I was running an hour and a half, 1:30.
Okay.
Yes,
Okay.
it's pretty fast.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was a 5K runner, so
Yeah.
anyway.
But all of that, just like all the years of addiction, just like the bulimia, just like the Kundalini, just like the cross country, it's all, you've absorbed all of that. It's made you who you are now. So it's the remembrance.
It is.
And
then back to that. So I was doing private lessons with
Yeah.
Liz, and she was like, she's very intuitive.
she is, but she's also she's hard, like,
She's a hardcore yoga
Yeah,
teacher. Like,
like-
she means business.
she's not gonna, that your mom paired you up perfectly.
Yes, I felt very safe with her. Yes, she's no bullshit.
She's amazing.
And I told her some of my story, and she was like, "All right, well, this is your like prescription. you're going to do hot yoga with me. You're going to start coming to classes. She said, but I just have this feeling. I think you should try Kundalini yoga. I think it's going to help you a lot. She's not a Kundalini teacher.
No.
And I did not go for a while. I was a little too nervous because I Googled it and it looked very strange.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, what? I could solve what? And the turbans and the sheepskins, it's out there. So it took me a while to try it. But once I did, I had a crazy release. I cried in class. And it was a whole different vibe. I liked that. You do the practice with your eyes closed. For me,
Yeah, so tell people what Kundalini is.
Kundalini is the yoga of awareness, and it's less about strengthening and flexibility. It's less about the physical body, although it can be very physical, and it's all connected. But it more so strengthens the nervous system and balances the glandular system and starts to work and reprogram the subconscious mind. It's a lot of mind stuff. You do most of it with your eyes closed, which was profound for me. It's a lot of heavy breath work and rhythmic movements that there's not a whole lot of research on Kundalini yoga, but there's a whole lot of research on things like tapping and EMDR and things that we're doing in Kundalini yoga.
Right.
So it's really effective. It works very quickly. For me, that first class, even just the simple things like closing my eyes and breathing and moving. So that took away this crazy comparison judging thing that I was doing in other yoga classes. I'm like, I want to do that move or like push myself harder.
Your eyes are closed.
Your eyes are closed. And then it opens up this whole other world that I hadn't explored before. Like usually the only time I had closed my eyes was when I was sleeping. So I'm like, oh my gosh, okay, I'm breathing and moving and my eyes are closed. I had no meditation. This was my first introduction to meditation. And it was profound to start listening in a different way.
Mm-hmm. As an athlete, because I love Kundalini. I don't practice it as much as I'm sure there's a part of me that's in resistance because it does just open you up so much. I'm sure there's this resistant energy that's keeping me from going to the studio that's right down the street. But
And some classes are wacky.
yeah, but I love that. But I love that so much. But as
nothing
an
wrong with
athlete,
that.
as an athlete, I love Kundalini for athletes. I was actually just talking about it the other night at dinner after Ironman. So from your perspective, an athlete, a runner, a teacher, and somebody who really has studied this practice, what do you think about it for athletes?
Oh my gosh, I love it. I love it for athletes. So we were just talking about Kundalini has some really interesting meditations and segments of class where you may be doing something for a very long time.
Right.
You might be doing this like arm hold. Your arms are out to the sides and you're tapping your middle finger to a pressure point for like, I don't know, 14 minutes or something. And what you go through, there are physical benefits. Like Kundalini is an ancient practice. It draws from ancient Chinese medicine and there's a whole energetic philosophy behind it. But what goes on in the mind is what I'm more interested in because it's a journey. Nothing's changing. And these little muscles in your arms to hold, you're not gonna break them. You're not gonna break your arms. Your muscles are gonna be fine. You're not gonna die, but your mind will tell you otherwise. And then, maybe another minute goes by and you're like, oh, this feels actually kind of good. I'm good. I could do this forever. And then, another minute goes by and you're like, oh, fuck, get me out of this. I hate it. I'm quitting. So and nothing's changed. Nothing's changed. And so I think that you practice a sort of grit in Kundalini in sitting through some of that pain. Pain comes in waves in Kundalini, just like it does in an endurance race. You can do more than you think you can do. You get to know your limits intimately, and like your mind limits and your physical versus like physical limits. And I think for preventing injury too, it's actually really big. Just being able to really tune in and listen to your body. Although I think maybe all types of yoga, probably any mindfulness practice will help you do that.
But I mean, what you just described, it like to me sounds like a marathon or an Ironman where you're like, 100%. Oh my God, I'm gonna die. I feel good again. Like I'm okay. I can do that. I can push a pace. And and that's what I love about it is just the like that disturbed energy will kind of show up, but then it passes, right? And it's really, isn't that the rhythm of life?
Totally. Like, I mean, I feel like these they're like, I would call endurance running or endurance athletes, like it's a practice, you know, and just like Kundalini is. And we're really doing very similar things because endurance running, I'll use an example, like it primes you for life, like the type of grit and pride and hard work and like, you know, there's many things that in life that do this. You just have to find what lands for you. Kundalini is a beautiful practice for any kind of endurance goals you might have. Yeah.
But I'm loving this whole endurance thing because in my mind I'm visualizing like
You've never been to a Kundalini
I've never been,
class,
but
I've
been putting in 20 hours of training a week when I could go to one Kundalini class and really get the same benefit of challenging your established belief system. And getting and how you described that of having the fear and the opposition, but then getting over it, and then getting the fear and opposition show up again, and then getting over it. So it's always taking that step to the other side, which really deconstructs any sort of belief system that you've built around protecting yourself, where the growth is on the other side.
Yes. You really tune into what works for you as far as like focus. So, you know, when using the arm example again, if your both arms are out to the sides, the palms face up, horizontal to the floor, and you've got to hold that for 15 minutes, you might find that if you lose your focus for even 1 second, like the pain comes in, you know, and then you lose it, and then your arms fall down. So I think there's a like you get better at focusing.
By practicing.
By
putting yourself
by practicing focusing. Yeah, right.
By practicing focusing.
Yeah.
There's no shortcut.
Yeah,
Why
and
don't you just focus? Actually focus. So do they know?
And it's less hard on your body. You're really doing the mind training. Like, you're not going to get a stress fracture in your arm by doing that for 15 minutes, you know, where, you know, you got to go run 100 miles maybe to get that same, I don't know. It's just an idea. Yeah.
No, yeah, it's totally making sense. So you can still, what you're saying is in this Kundalini class, it's basically you're rewiring the mind.
Yes.
When I would say majority of athletes feel that the physical is where the work can be established to achieve your goals. But if you step it a few, you know, take it back a little bit, focus on the mind, get that established first, then you can safely build up the endurance miles. So 10 miles a week and then 15 miles a week and then see that progression. But you're actually up-leveling, you're fast-forwarding because your mindset is already believing it can hold any position for any extended period of time.
And or like the opposite. I mean, like this mind stuff is the difference between first and second place.
Oh, absolutely.
Right? Like they're both physically like in incredible shape, first and second place. Like probably the same amount of fitness. The difference between that 30 seconds or 2 minutes is all mind, nothing else. Like one didn't train harder than the other. That's mind. So, it's fine tuned. I think this is really important for like higher level athletes. I'm sure they're all doing it.
Yeah.
I think you'd be surprised.
I think you'd be surprised.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Maybe after this conversation, Brittany's out there spreading the word. We'll get some exposure. I think it's a fascinating concept coming from someone who believes that from the old adage, you know, more is better, like crushing yourself.
Right, yes, right.
But as I've become a yoga teacher, because it's worked so well for me in my physical rehabilitation and mindset, having that knowledge that putting yourself in the Grand Canyon, we call it, like, and you have to actually feel the sensation build in your body and not react to every thought.
Yeah, so it's like it's practicing not responding to every impulse of your mind.
Right.
And what you gain with that is that you start to learn the tendencies of the mind. And if you can learn the tendencies of the mind, you gain so much control over that mind, because you're like, oh yeah, this is and you start to see the rhythms and your programming.
Yeah.
You see your programming, and by learning the tendencies of the mind, by pulling the veil off your programming, you can change it. Because we know the neural system in the body can be changed. It's plastic.
Right, so
it can be shaped.
You trained it to be this way,
right?
Which is probably not the right way. So why can't you change it and train it the other way?
Yeah.
Absolutely. So this sounds, I might even go out and give it a try.
Yeah. We should all go to a Kundalini class.
We can do it right now. Let's do it right after this.
Yeah, I know, actually. We got a teacher right here.
So my question is, do they know it's 15 minutes? Do you tell them you're going to hold it for 15 minutes?
It depends.
Okay.
Sometimes yes, sometimes no.
The mind wants to know.
Of course the mind wants to know.
Sometimes no.
Sometimes
they don't
no.
always tell you.
Sometimes no.
So that's up in the air. It's not
I've been in your class when we've done like the frog thing where we're like, you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah,
oh,
yes.
Mother of God. And you don't know how long you're going to be there. And she's like, okay, keep going. Like you hear them speak and you're like, oh, they're going to tell us it. And she'll just say, okay, keep going. Keep going. And then it's like nothing. Like it's not like she's saying, you're doing great or anything. It's like
silence.
Have
your experience.
And you're in it.
Yeah.
You're in the Grand Canyon.
Yeah.
Like you're in it. You've got all these impulses and you just keep doing another one. And that's really, it strengthens, I think, your ability to be present, because you're like, okay, I'm going to do one more. Okay, I'm going to do one more.
Versus,
I'm going to do one more.
Versus waiting for it to end, which is enduring, right?
Right.
Which is not what you want to do in class. Waiting for you to give them the cue.
Yes.
Wishing for another now.
Right.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
But then maybe she'll chime in and say, okay, 3 more minutes. And you're like, 3 more minutes? Jesus Christ.
yeah, right.
But then you're like, well, 3 more minutes. I feel like I've been doing this for 90, so I can do another 3.
There's a funny there's a funny joke in Kundalini that, you know those spoofs what is it? Shit yogis say?
Yeah.
So they did one. They did one for Kundalini. It's all like, that was 9 minutes. Wait, that was 3 minutes. Wait, that was 7 minutes. Like, because when you're done, and I tell you how long you did it for, you're like, that was 9 minutes. You cannot believe it.
Yeah. I went into when I first started practicing, I thought, okay, well, everything's 3 minutes. And so I was like, this is a really long 3 minutes. And then it would be like, you just did that for 14 minutes. I'm like, 14 minutes? Oh my God, that's like...
Well, the mind's so interesting. I bet this also can translate to endurance running. I've never run, 50 miles or 100 miles, but while you're in it, you're like, this is forever. I'm going to be doing this forever. So long. And then you finish it and you're like, oh, this isn't that bad.
Yeah, I could do it. I could do it faster.
Yeah,
I could do it again. I could do it faster. Yeah. Who was your teacher for Kundalini?
I started practicing at 10th gate.
Okay, yep.
And then I did my teacher training with Hadi Carr. She's a teacher out of New York City.
Okay. And 10th Gate is a sweet studio in Portsmouth on Aquidneck Island, which is the same island that Newport is on, if people aren't familiar with that area. And for you, what was it that got you hooked? Like, what were you taking away?
I think a lot of it had to do with the community, actually. It was a whole different vibe, like I said, when I walked into that class. It didn't feel like an exercise class, which I liked, actually. And I remember after the first class, because we did do a crazy arm thing, and I did start sobbing for some weird reason. And I remember going up to the women after, who were also dressed in really cool outfits. There were no spandex. It was very I don't know, hippie. I liked it. Yeah. So I was like, oh man, my arms are out of shape. I couldn't hold them up. And they just started laughing at me. They're like, it's not your arms, honey. I'm like, what do I mean by that? So I felt a little high after, which I also liked,
Yeah.
Sober.
Oh, I've definitely felt that way.
Well, a newly sober girl really likes feeling high. So
yeah.
I was like, sweet, okay. I can get a little high by doing this yoga, and I like the people there. And so I was living at home and had dropped out of grad school and whatever. I had all this debt and no money. So I emailed the owner at 10th Gate and was like, I freaking love this yoga. I think I need to keep doing it. It was a little intuition. And but I don't have any money, basically. And she was like, come clean the studio once a week and you can practice for free. So that was really good for me at that time because it kind of locked me into a healthy community of people. I was doing tons of yoga and I felt some like purpose for being there. Yeah.
That's beautiful. And then it just kept going. You became a teacher.
Became a teacher, yep. And then started a Kundalini yoga clothing company.
Yeah, so talk about your business a little bit.
So, yeah, that started...
And Kundalini clothing is super cool, by the way. And just for the record, the first time I walked into a Kundalini class, I wore all black.
Which you can.
But I was like, the shadow self is here.
So, yeah, that's one of, with Kundalini yoga, the way I teach it anyway, it's like take what you need, leave the rest. There's like a lot of wacky practices with it. And they've landed for me at different times in my life. And now, there's certain ones that I'm like, it doesn't land as deeply as maybe it there's so many things, which is great because if, you want, it's kind of like, I don't know, you take what you need. You don't have to do all of it. So one of the things is wearing all white. And so this is a great business because white gets dirty. And people need more of them. So, but like, it's like, okay, so there's all these people doing this yoga looking for white yoga clothes. Like, who in their right mind wants to wear white yoga clothes? Nobody. So there's nowhere to get them. But there actually are all these people that do want to wear white yoga clothes, totally different style and everything. But there was this opportunity to provide a product and a service that wasn't, it was kind of a very niche market that wasn't being.
And you've had the business for how long now?
Since 2012.
2012, and it's called Longtime Sun.
Yeah.
And people can buy the clothes online.
Yep.
Yeah, and you got to check it out because Kyla's got cool style.
Yeah, and there's, we've got other stuff on there too. So, if you're not into white, flowy cotton clothes, we've got some cool other colors too.
And you can wear black.
And you can wear black.
Just so you know, I did survive that class. I was all into black back then. It was very suiting for where I was at the time. Okay, cool. So let's get back to this tour that you on. You left when?
I left New Year's Day. Seemed appropriate. I ran a race. I ran a 5 or 6 mile race, the Hangover Classic in Bristol.
You were the only sober person there.
I was the only sober person. I had a little advantage. It wasn't really fair. And then I literally didn't shower and I just drove off from there. So yeah,
what was that moment like of? Because I've experienced
going over the bridge,
driving away. What was that?
Gosh, yes, going over the bridge. That was my moment. I bawled my eyes out. Something I hadn't mentioned was I don't know how it was for you guys, but prepping for this tour was the most insane time of my life. It was very stressful and chaotic and nutty, and all the fears coming in, breaks, what am I doing? But I closed my store. I had moved that Tuesday night community to a church. That class still runs now with rotating teacher. I was moving out of my condo. I had also just gone through a breakup. I was planning a tour, doing all the outreach because I'm teaching yoga for underserved, which also meant I had to do a zillion yoga trainings because I'm also I need to know what I'm doing.
You can't just walk into a prison.
No, I need to know what I'm doing. So I did two legit trainings before I left. I started a nonprofit. Then I'm also discovering about van life. I didn't even know this was a thing. Everyone's like, you got to get a van and build it out. I'm like, what?
You could have called us. We would have been like, you can also do it in a Honda Fit.
Yeah.
So I'm doing all these things. And then my dad died.
That's right.
my
I remember
God.
seeing that. But it was such a oh my God.
But it was beautiful, and the timing was.
It sounded so beautiful. Like,
he was. If anyone's seen the show Shameless, my father was Frank at the end. He was just a mess, like addict. It was bad.
But he
and
sounded
so,
like such a
but also
amazing guy.
Also amazing. He's amazing. But where I'm going with this is like. That was really the one thing that I was feeling guilty about leaving for, because he wasn't doing well. He was struggling with addiction. He was in and out of nursing homes and the ER. And I was like, I really need to do this trip, but like, who's going to visit my dad? Who's going to call 911 when he overdoses again? Like, who's going to take care of business? Oh, so that's a whole other story. But he set me free. He was like,
he did.
He was
so
done.
amazing.
He was done. It was really, in the moment, horrible timing, because I had all this stuff going on, and then it was like, what? Like, but it was the most perfect timing I could have. I mean, it was the most perfect timing.
How I want to, if it's okay, I want to dig in a little bit. Here you are at 24. He catches you in the kitchen. He's yelling at you.
Yep.
You leave the note. You get sober, but he continues to struggle.
He was sober at that time.
He was sober at
he
that
was sober.
time.
He was sober. Crazy. He was sober my entire life up until maybe 6 years ago.
Oh wow.
This is sort of the sneaky part of addiction. Addiction is the research is saying it's trauma based, and so. I don't know that he ever really did the work on the trauma.
The reprogramming.
He never did the reprogramming. And so...
So then you're just kind of like hoping that you can stay ahead.
Right. So I just knew a very different dad. He was sober, and he was kind of like model, AA guy, and then went out on pain meds. He had back pain and just big opioid problem in Rhode Island. And for sure that just kind of, it was downhill like crazy from there. And so then he struggled.
Well, thank you for sharing that, because that was kind of like interesting contrast with you being sober. And so.
Oh, totally. And then the roles got reversed.
Yeah, and then the roles got reversed.
Like they do, right? So.
And then he set you free. So beautiful.
So he's with me, on this trip.
Totally.
This tour is about so many things, and one of them's just kind of.
So you're going over the bridge.
Bringing it back. Oh my gosh. So I go over the bridge and I'm bawling my eyes out. I have just let go of so many things, including my father. I'm like, but it's also so beautiful. Like, it's sad, it's scary, it's so much emotion all at once. I'm like, my whole life is in this fucking van right now. I've got my dog with me. Like, I can go anywhere I want to. Like, what? Like, this is crazy. So I felt, I was overcome with a feeling of freedom and excitement and sadness, all of the things, like every emotion all at once. It was so cool.
And where have you been so far?
So I did January in Austin, February in Denver, March in Portland. I was supposed to do April in San Francisco, May in Los Angeles, but I ended up here in Ojai for 2 months. Then I go to New Mexico for the month of June. July, I'll be in Asheville.
Oh, we went to Asheville.
Yeah, I've never been. I'm psyched.
Yeah, super cool.
Psyched. And then, what month is after that? August, I'll be somewhere in New England. I have some work.
You've got a storage unit to get rid of.
And that's what I'm going to do when I'm going to, make a little side trip to Newport, get rid of the shit in the storage unit. And then, as per Jess's orders.
I think people know on the podcast our feelings on
storage units freak me out.
Drive by and we're like,
well, okay, to my credit, my father was a amazing woodworker. So I have a lot of stuff that he made that I think is worth keeping. So I might downsize it.
Yeah.
I'll get rid of the couch.
Yeah.
but I'm keeping the table.
Okay. You can put it in the back of the van.
I probably could fit it in
So
the
will
van.
that'll be the full circle then.
And then August, September I'll be in Chicago. October, Nashville. November I'm in New Orleans. Mm-hmm. And then December I'm in Florida. And then I'm coming back to California.
Heck yeah, you are.
Yeah.
So you set out to you tell us, like, what's the mission of this tour?
Right. So many things. I did start a nonprofit, and so really the overarching goal is for me to get clear on how I can be more of service in my life and how my company can make a bigger impact. I don't know what that looks like. I'm kind of exploring like what service means, like what is outreach? What does it mean to have a nonprofit? What do people need? So Longtime Sun Yoga Project is the nonprofit. It's a 501c3, and basically the general mission is that we support yoga and mindfulness programs for underserved. I started that nonprofit. I didn't know anything about starting nonprofits, but I had to do a lot of reading and a lot of paperwork. Meanwhile, I was taking a yoga training at Shri, which is also a Rhode Island-based nonprofit. Do you know Allison Bologna at Shri? Oh, incredible. They're an incredible organization. They put over 300 yoga classes per month for free in Rhode Island to underserved populations.
Wow.
I did her training, which was one of the best yoga trainings I've done a zillion yoga trainings. This was one of the best I ever took. We didn't learn much about yoga. It was really practical. It was for outreach and teaching to underserved. It was like, this is what it's like to call an organization. This is what you can expect when you get there. These are the types of rooms you might be teaching in. These are things you should say to this population, maybe avoid to this other population. These are sequences that work and don't work. So it was really like, it was so good. And I love Allison, the executive director. Just her energy is so contagious. The first time I met her, she was like, she invited me to a class that she was teaching to adults with intellectual and developmental disabilities. And I'm like, what does that even look like? It didn't look like it was just incredible. Like, I showed up, and the way that she had them moving and breathing and engaged was just unlike anything I had seen before. So I'm like, I need to do that training. Her and I hit it off. She was like, I love what you're doing. I love this tour. How can we help you? And so I partnered with them, and they support and help me outreach to different organizations and offer yoga classes, and they sponsor my teaching time.
Oh, that's so amazing.
Isn't that amazing?
That's wonderful.
So in Austin, I was helping out and teaching with at-risk youth. In Denver, I was teaching to seniors, many of which had Alzheimer's. In Portland, I was teaching to adults with intellectual and developmental disabilities. And here in California, I just taught to a group of inmates that are part of this program to become firefighters.
Oh, wow. That's amazing.
Isn't that amazing?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I was teaching at the fire station, like the fire training station. So it just so happens that I've been teaching to all these different groups. And, I mean, the class looks so different depending on who's in front of you. And it's really outside of my comfort zone, which I'm loving. It's helped me grow a lot.
What have you learned about getting to the other side of fear?
There is fear, like legitimate fear that you should listen to. Like, getting to know your internal compass is so important. You can get to know your internal compass through many different practices, and meditation has been like the number one for me. But that internal compass will tell you if it's like legit a no, don't do this. It's not right for you. Just like you were talking about with the yoga studio opportunity you had. Like, It's a no. This is not this is not a fear of me getting bigger. This is a no, it's not right for me. Or is it, the fear I was feeling of like, okay, this is really scary, my ego, and it's like, it's ego stuff that's trying to keep me small and comfortable. But I knew that, like, I'm in touch with my internal compass. So I'm like, I know that you're not serving me. I'm supposed to be growing and doing this bigger, more expansive thing. And then you feel, you kind of, it's kind of like an endurance race. Like, you get that feeling after you do the thing that's scary. It's like a runner's high almost. And then life sort of, I believe life kind of rewards you. So you get through the fear, you do the thing you know you're supposed to do, and you follow, your internal compass, then things get easy. You get this runner's high, we'll just call it that, and then it just starts to feel and flow. Opportunities are coming to you, things are falling into place, maybe you get that like email job, it's just like things. The universe is like a mom saying, like, good job, here's some here's some cookies.
Yeah. Well, do you believe that you're a co-creator?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Right? Like when you were staying, I don't want to say small, but let's say like safe, right?
Safe,
Back in where you were in Rhode Island. That what you were getting from that was the anxiety and the imposter syndrome and all of that.
Yep.
And now that you followed and that internal voice, which I really believe that once you get more in touch with them, sometimes they're like pretty loud and firm, but they're also very subtle.
Totally. That said, meditation and having, like, I have the most amazing, very real friends that have also done, the work. And so they help me, like talking, processing with like soul heart friends that I know are like, on that level. And they can help me figure it out. Like even as I talk, I've got one girlfriend that I call all the time at home, but like I she doesn't even need to say anything. I just call her and I talk. And I'm like, okay, I got it. Thanks. Bye. She's like, oh, okay.
But it's people who are living from that voice and that they know their internal compass. And so, people might think that the three of us have known each other for years, but you just met BJ tonight. And, I've been to your class a handful of times. They were very powerful, but it's been a handful of times. But I feel like I know you so well.
It's a line.
And like at one point I was like, okay, we got to start this podcast because we'd already been talking and I'm like, we're just talking
like
about the
attracts
podcast.
like. It's kind of like a little magnet. So.
Attracts like.
I try to keep those people close, and when I'm feeling confused about my internal compass, like I just have to even like just be around someone that's sort of like, in tune with theirs and kind of like sets me straight.
Because we've all had to step over that fear barrier.
Yeah.
We all, we do it all the time, and so do you. So even though like things still line up, and you're in this slipstream now, like you're 5 months in, there's still going to be things that are going to scare you. You're still going to have the unknown.
Fear comes back all the time. We were just talking about like little kid tantrums or something. I'm like, it's like, one thing I will say is that the background anxiety that I was experiencing while I was in Newport is really gone. It's really not there. The day-to-day stress, it comes up, but like that thick claustrophobic feeling is really gone. But yeah, of course there's this there's moments, and this is just life, and I tell myself, I have this moment, it's funny, it can be a little roller coastery. Like I remember driving down the coast from Portland, Oregon down to California, and I was in tears, just so blissful. I'm like, I am so grateful. This is so beautiful. Like, look at the coast. I'm supposed to be in California. My whole life's in the van. And I'm like, tears of joy and gratitude. And then like literally 2 days later, I'm trying to pack an order like out of my van. It's like logistically impossible. And I'm like, what the fuck am I doing? This is so stupid. I can't believe I did this. So it's like, but these moments come up, whether like I'm home, I'm in one place, or if I'm traveling. It's like just the nature of.
It's life.
It's life.
Living life.
It's living life.
You're actually in that moment, feeling the blissful tears and joy, and you're in that frustration of packaging.
Yes.
So you're actually experiencing it. Where I think a lot of people it gets shoved aside and they just get on that hamster wheel where they just float through. Okay, it's supposed to be like this. Well, yeah, it's supposed to be like this, but if you live in the moment, you're not going to attach the feeling of angst or anxiety. You're not going to attach that same thing to the experiences you're having, because you're actually, the only way to live life is in the moment, right? You got to be there to experience it. So why would you wish it away? Like, and feel that whatever it is, like, I can just visualize you two coming down the coast, like feeling so much joy and happiness because it's in that moment. You're doing exactly what you're supposed to be doing.
Yep.
Your heart is aligned. And then when you're packaging your gear, that's exactly what you need to be doing. And maybe the mind wants to fall back on an old thought that it believed to be true.
Yeah.
But you're still living through that experience. And so I think getting through that fear, your confidence is building, and our confidence is building as we experience these things more and more. But if you don't take that first step to get real with yourself and your inner gut feeling that's saying don't go, don't.
Yeah.
But you go and do it, that effect just can spiral. And then it's blissful on the other side.
But you still have to show up. You're in the slipstream, like you still have to show up. You know, yesterday we were driving back down from Santa Rosa to Berkeley, and we had recorded a podcast on Sunday from Ironman, and we wanted to launch it yesterday. So we're in the car and we're in traffic, and I'm on the headphones and I'm editing in the car, and I'm like, I am gonna throw up. I am so car sick right now. And I'm like, but then feeling the pressure of like, I've got to launch it today, and I'm like, take the headphones off, open up the window, fucking relax. Like, this is an amazing life. Just don't throw up on the computer, because this actually has the podcast on it, you know? And it's like, we kind of laugh. We're just like, you still have to show up, but what an amazing life on the other side of fear.
Yes.
And then everything just was in flow after that. We found a Whole Foods. We got a parking spot right at the front, and we missed traffic, and then we made it to our place, and it was like everything, the podcast was launched, like all the flow happened. As soon as you let the resistance go.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. It was like, it doesn't need to happen right now as we're going over the Bay Bridge, right? Like, it can just, it'll be fine. It'll be fine. And guess what? It got launched, and it's in the world, you know? So how can people follow you? Are you, like, if somebody's like, oh my God, I'm in Nashville and
yes. And that's happened so much. It's been so beautiful. Talk about staying in the moment. Like, I'm in each place for a month and just meeting up with people for the sake of meeting up and no other thing. Like, there's no other agenda. There's no agenda. Like, that's new. That's really actually new for me. Like, not trying to get anything from you. We're just meeting up.
Right. Yeah.
It's beautiful. So beautiful. So Longtime Sun, Longtime Sun at Longtime Sun Yogi is the Instagram. LongtimeSunYogi.com. You can see the tour of where I'll be.
Cool.
LongtimeSunYogaProject.com. You can learn all about the outreach.
And if you want to wear white.
If you want to wear white, you'll have to go to the Tuesday night class in Newport.
No, that's your website, your clothing company.
I'm teaching that kind of yoga right now. My clothing company, LongtimeSunApparel.com.
Sweet. Awesome. Kyla, this has been amazing. I'm so glad that I waited 3 years to have you on, and that we had to travel 3,000 miles across the country to meet up. It's perfect.
I love you. Thank you.